Danny, this is our 20th podcast that we have put out, and this one's pretty wild. The kind of impetus for listeners of this week is Danny and I were trying to figure out, like, how do you possibly run a business if you are not allowed to use the walled gardens? And we were lucky enough to get in touch with a buddy who is the co-founder of Amuse.com, which is basically Uber for cannabis.
And anyone who lives in a state where cannabis is legal knows that it's something consumers want. It's big business. There's a lot of money flowing, kind of everything you want for a successful business and to advertise on digital channels. But fascinating that they cannot go and acquire users on Meta, on Google, on Snap, on the big market. So it's a great conversation on the what if. Only this is a reality, and figuring out how a business had to grow non-digitally.
And it's, obviously, like, cannabis is a kind of a gray area to a lot of people. But, Alex, the co-founder of Amuse, who we interviewed, I mean, he ran marketing at Reformation. He ran marketing at Attentive. Like, he has been in the weeds on the most sort of legitimate marketing stacks, approaches that you possibly could find. So really, really fascinating conversation about how in the world you can grow when you are boxed out from these walled gardens.
And for anyone that has ever been curious about regulated industries, I think this is a fascinating conversation. So let's dive right in. Alex Becker is the CMO and co-founder of Amuse, a cannabis delivery company that has raised over $60 million. Before Amuse, Alex founded the internet marketing company Highly Relevant, which was acquired by Wpromote. He was also the VP of Ecommerce and Product at the fashion brand Reformation. And prior to that, Alex served as the head of customer acquisition and retention at Attentive. He also advises a number of great marketing-related businesses, including Attentive, the comprehensive text message solution with over $800 million of funding to date. Alex, really excited to have you on the podcast. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
So yeah, I mean, beyond doing all that, amazing stuff over the last 15 years, Alex also a buddy of mine from high school. We've known each other for, I don't know, I've probably known you since I was 13. So It's been like a long time, and kind of on a similar path of being in sort of ad tech related stuff out in LA. So I think it's kind of a good place to start. Like, how'd you end up on the West Coast? And then how did you get into internet marketing in the first place?
Yeah, so I came out here for work. I actually got into internet marketing through gaming. So in college, I started playing Counter-Strike. My team or clan needed a website, and I took a class and kind of learned how to make basic HTML websites. Actually started like monetizing that in college for people who took that class and wanted their own website, and kind of slowly learned about affiliate marketing and really never looked back.
And starting from gaming and that first website, how has the evolution of marketing changed since that moment to where we are today in your path?
I mean, yeah, no, it's changed in almost every way imaginable, right? I think at a macro level, everything is mobile today. That wasn't a thing. Like, we were still Nokia flip phone worm eating games back then, and today it's really, you got to be mobile first, and everything's performance related and testing and optimizing, right? So, your cost per new customer, cost per repeat customer, cost per order, your LTV, churn, web to app conversions, personalization, generative AI, right? Like, and scaling efficiently and really thinking about, like, who are you trying to target? What are you saying to them? And when are you saying it is really today. And back then, there was no social, there wasn't all of these new kind of products that really make your life easier, but also you really need to know how to use them today.
And when you were doing and starting highly relevant, like, did you feel like almost when you were pitching kind of like direct response or performance solutions that people were just like skeptical? Like, was it so early they were like, come on, like, this thing doesn't actually grow a business for you?
I mean, dude, that's exactly right. Like, there wasn't performance marketing when, like, we recognized performance marketing was the future. But at the time it was like, we'll get you to page one. We'll get you, rankings. And it's like, yeah, just because you rank for a certain keyword doesn't mean it's the right keyword, doesn't mean it's transactional. And then also like we're so focused on just like get me more traffic, and it's like, dude, your site sucks. Like you need to optimize your conversion funnel. Like if you're an e-commerce company, like you need to optimize that funnel, and top of the funnel, bottom of the funnel, and like is it easy to call you and fill out a lead form, right? And we really thought about that holistically, because really affiliate marketing was really the tip of the spear as far as performance marketing. We didn't really know it at the time, but like, how do you maximize the amount of traffic you're getting? How do you maximize the rate at which that traffic converts, right? And we applied those to our clients by fixing their funnel and then driving more traffic. And obviously, SEO was really our bread and butter in paid search, but that changed. Obviously, SEO has changed a lot as well. But yeah, we were definitely ahead of the game, and people didn't know what they wanted. They wanted the first page, but what they really wanted was more sales or more leads or more phone calls, and that's today.
Yeah,
And as part of that, you concentrated so much on acquisition, and it sounds like a lot of brands wanted to acquire new customers and fill that funnel. But in your role at Added Tickets, you were also tasked with retention,
Yeah.
which is just as important. If you're getting new customers and it's a leaky bucket, you still have a similar problem. So, how did you help brands with that bottom funnel and then retaining customers for the long term?
Yeah. Well, look, retention is probably the most important thing. It's always cheaper to get an existing customer to buy again than it is to get a brand new customer. But yeah, I mean, there were, and look, at Amuse specifically, like retention is the most important thing, right? Because we're so limited with the channels where we can acquire, right? So at Atom Tickets, it was really about understanding the holistic journey of the perfect path, right? Of someone like signing up, right? And what is the next step that we want them to do? Obviously, purchasing, and then inviting their friends, and then purchasing again and again and again, right? But there's obviously like deviations from that perfect path, and you really create solutions to get them to do the things that you want them to do. So like, again, signing someone up, like getting a new customer on the website versus in an app is way cheaper, but retention is like 4 times higher in many cases in the app. So how do you drive web to app conversion, right? How do you drive like sophisticated triggered communications via a combination of email, SMS, and or push, right, to drive those actions, or and look at like churn or engagement, or just the different like primary and secondary objectives of your business, and leverage those tools. So and then obviously A/B testing a ton, subject lines, the call to actions in the emails, like the landing pages you send them to, right? Surveying customers, all that stuff.
And do you feel like, kind of like, I guess maybe for listeners, and we should have asked you probably before, but can you guys tell everyone just about Amuse and kind of just how that business works? And then the question I had was like, do you almost feel like your whole career has been leading up to this because it's in a regulated industry? It's like you have to have such a broad point of view, and like you can't be one dimensional because it's complicated.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I mean, so Amuse we're a cannabis delivery company. You could think like we liken ourselves to the DoorDash of cannabis. The difference is we own and operate the entire supply chain. So we own depots in Los Angeles, Sacramento, and San Francisco. Customers don't go into those depots. They're literally like, for our, we call them UTR, under the roof staff, where orders come in through our website. We actually do have an iOS app. We don't have an Android app because Google won't let us. But orders come in through our website and our iOS app, and we fulfill them in the depots, and then we power that entire last mile delivery program as well. So, order comes in through the site, it's pick packed in the depot, and then we send drivers out, hopefully on the most optimized routes that make sense from like getting customers product on time and like operational efficiency on like the cost per delivery side. On the marketing specific side of that, like, it's challenging. Customer acquisition and marketing is very challenging. We don't have access to like paid social. Like we can't pay and advertise on Facebook and Instagram and TikTok. We could post organically. We could have like people post organically, but like you hit 5, 3, 5, 10% of someone's audience only, unless you could actually boost or, pay to hit the audience or expand it. And we can't do that. We run Google paid search, but we have a intermediary landing page set up that does not say or show cannabis, right? It just talks about us as a delivery service, right? And how we're better and the things that we can do. And then they click over for like some sort of offer we give them, and they're brought to a sign up page only on Amuse proper. And then after they sign up, they're then brought to Amuse. So there's just leaky funnels all over. We run billboards, right? We do direct mail, which is great because that's really, I think, broadened my marketing prowess. Some of these traditional tactics, like, we rely on. And then yeah, like, referrals are huge. Building out a really robust referral give get, kind of like Uber, give 20 get 20, whatever, has been critical. And then really focusing on the performance of the channels is another challenging thing when you have traditional offline media, right? Not everything is digital, so tracking things, obviously, through promo codes, not ideal. We run surveys. How did you hear about us, right? And we'll try to correlate the number of people that respond during certain windows against the ad dollars we spent to, like, back into like a CAC and stuff like that. But yeah, I think to your question, James, like, all of these things that I've been through in my career have definitely prepared me to be successful in this space that's nascent, highly regulated, limited to get customers and retain customers, for sure.
And do you like, I mean, given the restrictions on it and just like the complexity of that business, are you at this point where, like, when things get, like, when regulation kind of finally gets finalized, which, like, it feels like it's inevitable, like there will be one day when you can, like, advertise on
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
right? Like, are you guys, do you think you're going to be just in such a better position because you've had to, like, address all these other areas, whereas like some competitor may come in and they're just going to be stuck trying to play that same, like, meta, Google playbook?
Well, look, I think the walls coming down on the industry are going to be helpful for us, right? And we're going to have a head start. And it's been such a grind to try to reach these customers. So we're looking forward to it. Obviously there was just news that they recommend it be descheduled, which is huge. That opens up, like, capital has dried up in cannabis. So capital entering is a good thing. We can't process online payments are challenged. Like, we can't accept credit cards, right? Do you guys order from Amazon and then they show up and you pay them? No, right? Like, so we have issues with, like, no shows, and it's a high cash business, which is expensive and dangerous, frankly. And then yeah, like, all the ability, like, there's a 280E tax challenge in the space where we technically could only reduce our revenue by COGS. That's it. Cost of goods sold. No traditional write-offs on the business. So it's so prohibitive in every way that we're looking forward to it. And then again, you talk about customer acquisition and retention and stuff like that. It's just, we don't have access to the biggest playgrounds in the world where everyone is, and it's tough. So I think we've sort of figured it out without them, and I think it'll be just a boon when we get them.
Can you run
And
any, like, connected TV, like streaming? Like, are you box out of that stuff too?
Yeah, we're boxed out of everything.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
and on the marketing side, similar to James's question, you've had to rely on non-traditional tactics or get a little smarter and more creative. On the operating side, is it something similar that you're having to figure out how do you get that last mile delivery most efficiently? How do you operate a business that is cash, that can't rely on digital services, that can't rely on all the traditional software that makes running a business a lot easier? Like, does that position you well for the future?
I mean, look, every part of cannabis is just littered with landmines. That's just really what it is. So a prime example is, like, every employee, every person that works for a cannabis company, they have to be a W-2 employee. There is no gig economy, right? Which, to be honest, is a good thing, that people will leave the Ubers and Lyfts and DoorDashes and come work for us, right? A lot of them still do run those jobs as well, but it's expensive. There's so much regulation as far as how much product can a driver carry at one time, right? There's Metric, this system where it's basically track and trace, where products have to be, when you accept inventory, it has to go through Metric, so they know it originated from distributor and it's in Amuse's hands, and basically you need to track and trace everything in Metric. Now they make you do every single receipt needs to be tracked in there. So it's just landmine after landmine. And then at a macro level, like, we can't use Shopify. They won't work with cannabis companies. Like, there is no like UPC of cannabis products, right? So it's a challenge, right? And look, like, the last thing is, Amuse has raised a substantial amount of money, but people have expectations that our delivery is the same as DoorDash, is the same as Postmates, right? And those companies have raised billions and billions of dollars, and we have not. And so, like, it's a challenge, right? And then you also bring in the people and payment aspect, where we can't just drop it off at your door and leave. Like, someone has to be there. They have, we have to check their ID. Like, we have to collect payment, all those things. So the operation is honestly the hardest part. I think we're really scrappy on on differentiating ourselves from like a customer service, and like, we just want to be like the low price value amusement park. But it's, the operations piece is incredibly challenging, for sure.
And then, like, in terms of, I guess, the just like building out the brand and everything, like, given the restrictions, has it been, like, I've seen billboards all over LA. I think I texted you about it. I've seen them around, but like,
Yep.
they're all over. I mean, I feel like people know what Amuse is. I have family members who are I think long time. But yeah, how do you go about like building a brand for this? And then, like, I guess, especially in comparison to like Atom tickets and like Reformation, like, and Attentive, like, these things are brands. Like,
Oh
everyone
yeah.
knows what these things are.
Yeah.
So, like, what's it been like going from like building those things to now kind of just like, I guess, fighting with one hand behind your back a bit?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's tough, and you have to overinvest in not immediate ROI driving media, and it's tough, right? There's not that you spend money and they immediately come to your site and purchase. So it's been hard. It's definitely been hard, and even like, the billboards we're on, we had to make sure that they're not within a certain distance of schools, or things like that, which is crazy because it needs to have 75% of the audience needs to be like above 21, right? You can do 98% of that, 99% if you just could do digital, right? Like,
Yeah.
you could target way better than these billboards. So it's kind of like counterintuitive, but yeah, I mean, it's been hard to kind of get established. We did leverage it earlier in our kind of existence, Weed Maps and Leafly. That's kind of, you could reach a lot of people. It's expensive, and to be honest with you, no offense to those platforms, but they're not the best customers. They're just deal shoppers, right? And they're always just, they don't, there's no loyalty to a brand. They just care about who's got the lowest deal. So yeah, it's been tough, but leveraging the Weed Maps and Leaflies out of the gate, and really, if we launch in a market, saturating that market with our billboards and direct mail, and there is some access to certain podcasts that, again, they're not the best per se, the best inventory, but you got to use what you can. But it's definitely been a challenge.
And there's been a lot of talk of retail media and retail media networks popping up in grocery and e-commerce and just across the industry. I guess one is there an existing retail media network or a platform that you think has the potential to be one? And then two, is that something that you at Amuse think about expanding the revenue opportunity from just hard product to maybe building out an ad network?
I think it's interesting. I would say we're the cannabis industry, just frankly, is so focused on survival, like fighting and figuring out how we grow and scale, and the macro trends of like an oversupply of cannabis dropping prices like precipitously, and just the competitive nature of the space. Like, I think that's a nice to have, but it's so far down the road from the space. But there's no doubt, like, as the industry matures and again, when we get access to all the things that normal way businesses get, that is a totally natural progression, right, for these businesses to have. Even when you think about like what goes good with weed, well, people get the munchies, right? There's matches made in heaven between all the different delivery companies, right, and figuring out those kind of partnerships. But for now, I think it's not something that's on our radar right now.
And is there a, I guess, like, just you mentioned like the oversupply part of that, like that's something like I think I didn't even know that. Like, is there just also this like, this has nothing to do with ads, just more just curious. Is there this weird, just like macroeconomic part of this where it's like because there's an oversupply, there's pricing is deflationary, and does that
Oh
matter
yeah.
for you guys? Like
No,
from
I
a
mean, so look, like what's happened is back when we launched, there was like Croptober, they called it, where like there was no supply and like no one could get product, right? And prices were astronomical, right? Which is good for us and bad for the customer, right? But and then it corrected itself way too much, and so there is so much supply of cannabis that prices are just have gone down so much, right? And so our margin is healthy, but the dollars within that margin aren't as high. And I think given the macro trends of the world and economy, customers are more focused on buying the equivalent of like a 30 pack of kind of crappy beer, cheap ounces versus craft beer, right? The high end expensive stuff. So there's just been a shift in like what people buy and how they buy, and it's it's definitely put downward pressure on like the brands and the distributors and and the retailers, right? And the customers are winning for sure, like the customers. But the other piece of it is this oversupply trickles into the black market. The black market is still 2/3 of all cannabis sales. That's our biggest competitor is the black market, right? Like that,
huh.
full stop.
It's super interesting. On the black market side, I mean, you guys are running into challenges along with the whole industry of trying to acquire new customers, get your brand in front of them. How do you think the black market kind of has 2/3 of kind of customers when they can't market, right?
Well, the reason why it's simple is because of these like there's the most burdensome taxes ever for to be a licensed cannabis retailer, right? Like taxes are like 30-ish%, maybe more, depending on where you are, to buy weed legally. So that even if we sell it for $40, you add 30%, and they sell it for, you know, $50, they're cheaper, right? And so, and then they don't have the burden of paying those taxes, so they can just charge way less, and we can't compete with those prices. And by the way, they're getting the same products that we are in many cases, right? Like there's a lot of everyone's trying to survive. Like brands are trying to survive, distributors are trying to survive, and in this industry, there's a lot of self-distributing brands, which is not really heard of in other industries like alcohol, right? Like so they'll deal to legally, and then they'll deal to the black market, and it's tough. So we're getting hit every way. It's the most challenging industry I've ever been in, but I think we've kind of wade through the hardest times, and like with this descheduling and some of the other things that hopefully happen from that, safe banking, etc. Hopefully we're on the other side of that.
Yeah, and as things get more just like normal, will the business model change? Will you guys still like have the depots? Like, is that like, or is that like again part of like just like the cost of doing business given the regulatory environment?
The honest answer is I don't know. Like there's so much that could change with this. Like can we, if we could accept online payments and it's no longer federally illegal, can we send it in the mail? I don't know, right? Like I don't know. Like there's just, I think it's exciting and a little scary, but anyone who wants to get in, we're gonna have a massive head start, right? And like the licensing and all the requirements of licensing, which by the way I haven't really talked about, but they're insane, right? You need to buy a license, you need to be in a facility that's approved for cannabis. If someone knows you're a cannabis company, they just jack up rent 5 times because they know they can, because there's no other options. All of that stuff is still going to be there in some way, right? Like the same way you need a liquor license and all that kind of stuff. So we think we're going to have a really good head start. But yeah, I don't know exactly how it's going to change, but we most certainly are going to pivot quickly.
Do you can you like do you ever just think about like how easy if you ever like after you guys IPO this business or whatever, like how easy it would be to run marketing for a retail brand again?
Oh my god, yeah, no, trust me, I think about it all the time. When I hear anyone with like problems, I'm like, you don't know problems. Like you really don't know problems and challenges, because it's not only access, it's regulation, and it's it's tough.
And you talked a little bit about kind of fragmentation and distributors, right? There are not consolidated distributors; they're self-distributing. You guys are operating in California. There's others operating in different markets. Do you think there's an opportunity at some point for almost like a brand holding company to come in and either own the distribution networks, own the kind of cannabis brands like a Diageo or Procter and Gamble?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's where it's going to go, right? Because I think also with if it's descheduled and or legalized or whatever, then there's like the interstate, you know, dilemma is solved. Like right now, you cannot if you want to be a brand in different states, you need a distributor in each different state, right? You need to in some states you need to grow your own. You can't take product that you've grown in California and distribute it across the country. You need to then, if you want it in Illinois, you need to grow it in Illinois. You want it in Florida, you got to grow it in Florida. And by the way, in Florida, you have to be vertically integrated across the whole spectrum. So from cultivation to making your own products to distributing and then retail, like you have to own the entire chain. So when that changes, and look, like I know for a fact, like the big liquor distributors are poking around. They're poking around in here, and make no mistake about it, there will be a big house of brands and a consolidation. Like right now, there's a lot of parallels with like honestly, alcohol, tobacco, even, but I'd say mostly alcohol. You don't need 60 different tequila brands. You need 8, 10, 12, whatever,
Yeah.
5, I don't know.
Yeah.
Right. And like that's going to happen too, is like everyone has a Blue Dream, strain, and there's so many brands that have it, that all of that consolidation is going to happen, and big players are going to enter. And frankly, I think the longer they wait, the easier it's going to be for them.
And
Yeah.
for CBD and hemp and some of the other maybe ancillary products, it seems like there's less regulation that you
Oh
can,
yeah.
as far as I'm right, you
Yeah.
can send CBD teas or CBD drinks
Yeah.
across state lines nationally. Like, what's the dynamic there?
Yeah, there's like hemp derived products that you could like ship in the mail, right? THC derived CBD products, that's a different story. But yeah, I mean, there's, even Facebook will let you advertise hemp derived products on Facebook, right? You could ship those in the mail. I think you're going to start seeing the big box retailers carry those products if you don't already, right? So yeah, and I think overall that's a good thing for cannabis too, right? Because it's a derivative. It's they're cousins, right? They're loosening restrictions on a cousin of the thing that we need to to loosen further.
Yeah.
And you mentioned just like that, Meta allows, those products to be advertised. Like, is there, obviously, like I see like on my Instagram, and obviously like we know from like our Snap experience, there's like just like there's a lot of drug affiliated content on these social networks
Yep.
today. Like, ranging from like celebrities and then just obviously like normal people. Like, is your sense that the reason why, like, are their hands tied? Like, they want to support
Oh yeah.
the commercialization of this. It's just like they just can't.
Well, look, it's the so look, the first. So if it's descheduled, safe banking will pass. And when safe banking passes, that's when everything opens, right? Because basically what's happening is you have banks and big companies, big public companies that are technically federally regulated, right? And they don't want to put their existing businesses at risk to try to also make money from cannabis. That's all it is, right? Like why should MasterCard or Visa have risk of their of getting fines or punishments or dealing with courts or whatever for their billions and billions of dollars they make legally by trying to make money on something else right now? And that's really that's the linchpin. That makes it where people won't really get it. Like we've had conversations with a lot of delivery companies, traditional delivery companies. We've had conversations with like the networks and ad platforms and different reps and different teams at these ad networks, and they all want it, and they all are trying to figure out how they do it. Like Twitter now, right? They're pretty friendly with things with Elon, but it just doesn't really work, to be honest. You do some branding, but like they all want it for sure. It's just a matter of like what's the risk tolerance, and obviously
Can you run
big risk tolerance.
Yeah, will X let you run like app install for Amuse?
They'll let us run some stuff again. The challenge is like I feel like there's a lot of manual intervention, and like depending on the person, it's kind of like that whack-a-mole. Like you're fine, and then someone looks at it, and then you're not, and then even I'll say it, like Google. We had a rep at Google that worked with us and like told us how to do things, and like we built campaigns and did stuff with them, and then all of a sudden our account was shut down, and the guy was like, I can't do anything. And like we've had multiple people from Google hit us up. I'm from the special whatever team, blah blah blah, and I'm like, yeah, well, good luck trying to turn our account back on. We've tried everyone, like, so. But it's just interesting that like they'll play in it, right? And they wanna learn, they want to figure it out. But they also a lot of the times it's like, yeah, it's out of our hands, like so.
The never surprised by like the level of like kind of shit showness of the ad platforms and the policy decisions. It's like
my gosh. Yeah.
we it was like the one biggest takeaway I feel like we had like from Snap was just like, because policy there was like meant so much, because like obviously everything's so private, but it was one of those things where it's just like there's really no answers, and so like the lawyers end up winning, so it kind of makes sense.
Oh
that
yeah,
it would work that way.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and again, it's like we get hit up every couple months with someone that's like, we want you to continue to run this thing, and we're like, should we create a new account? And they're like, you have an account? And I'm like, gosh, you got like, they have no one has any idea what's going on. And then once we unpack it, they're like, yeah. Okay,
you're right.
Yeah, we'll see ya.
There's a reason why they have really big teams of Salesforce like engineers at these platforms.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, that's a good segue though to I think our kind of final set of questions that we'll just fire off to you and get your quick take. But because, and we touched on it a little, but because you haven't been able to rely on Google, Meta, the traditional channels, is there something that you've had to adopt by necessity that you think other more traditional brands should consider or haven't looked at?
I mean, yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot of value in some of the old, like the snail mail, like direct mail door hangers. There's also really interesting things you could do. Like, you think about retention and triggered SMS, email, right? Push, but there's also direct mail triggers that could happen from that, right? So think about that. Like you have customers, they haven't purchased in a while, right? You send them a direct mail of an offer, right? That's another way. And then, the other thing that's been cool for us is with opt-outs, we direct mail them, so like it's another, like try to do like win backs and stuff. So I really think there's something to be said. And then there's something to be said about billboards definitely work. I think a lot of it has to do with like the message and location, but yeah, I mean, there's definitely some tricks of the trade that I think can apply outside of cannabis,
Yeah. And then in the other part of your business, right, do you think there's going to be consolidation or fragmentation as we move forward in just the delivery space in general, whether it's cannabis, food, pharma, et cetera?
Consolidation for sure. Yeah. Because like everyone, look, last mile delivery is all about volume and efficiency. And if you can, and look, scheduling orders is amazing for optimization. So the more volume, the more products you could fit into routes, the more efficient it is for really everyone, right? For the brand, for the delivery company, and the customer. So I think consolidation, and we know, again, like we've talked to the big delivery companies, they're getting into this. It's just a matter of when, and like, it's funny because they're like, we don't care about your customer acquisition numbers. We don't care about your last mile delivery. We care about your footprint and like the expertise, basically, because when you think about it, like take some big company for ride hailing, right? They have the customers and they can just immediately message them and turn them on to this product. And then no one does last mile delivery better than them. So they don't want any of that shit from us, right? They just want the expertise and relationships and licenses and know-how and the pitfalls and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
But consolidation is 100% going to be the future.
If you weren't running Amuse today, what business would you immediately start?
I don't know. It's a really good question. I don't know. I don't have a good answer there.
Okay. Fair enough.
That's fair. I feel like you got your hands full right now. Maybe like go on vacation.
What would you guys do if you weren't doing market?
I'd probably do some golf thing.
Yeah, right? Dude, you just reminded me of what I want to do, which everyone probably it's already starting to happen, but the golf simulator bar lounge thing.
They opened one in Lake Forest.
Yeah, the Urso, the Duffers.
He started that?
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah.
But I think there's something there. And like, I'd really focus on, it sounds counterintuitive, but I'd focus on the girls. I'd focus on, obviously girls want to play golf, but if they go with their boyfriends and husbands and the guys are running around being animals, like have really good food and apps and drinks and stuff that cater towards that audience is my...
let's
sign us up.
Let's talk.
Done. Yeah. I'll text you after this.
Yeah.
And then last one, given the experience at Atom Tickets, it's like favorite movie or show, just like what are you guys watching over there now?
So all time, I was a big Shawshank Good Will Hunting guy. Right now, my number one movie is actually Interstellar. I don't know why. It hits me. It hits different. That Hans Zimmer is just an animal. The music that guy, the soundtrack that guy put out, like but that's my number one right now.
Love it. And Alex, where can people find out more about Amuse or follow you?
I'm not big on socials, but I got the Insta. You could check me out. It's private, so request access. But no, yeah. And Amuse, you could just amuse.com. Check it out. Give it a whirl.
Alex, this was great. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. I love what you're doing here. I love what you're doing over at Market, and hopefully we can get out and play some golf here if we can get away from the kids.
Yeah, man. Let's do it. Appreciate it, man.